Tálsí Gábbard has been nominated by President Trump to serve as the United States' next Director of National Intelligence. She had this to say in her Senate confirmation hearings.
Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Gabbard, when Russia was denying us use of chemical weapons, they accused the U.S. of supporting terrorists. This is a line that Putin used frequently during the Syrian civil war as he supported Assad. Syrian officials made similar comments. They did it repeatedly. They did it in public. They did it at the United Nations. In 2016, you gave an interview in which you said, and this is a quote, "The U.S. is providing direct and indirect support to terrorist groups in order to overthrow the Syrian government." And in 2019, on the Democratic presidential debate stage, you said of President Trump, this is a quote, "This current president is continuing to betray us. We were supposed to be going after al-Qaeda, but over years now, not only have we not gone after al-Qaeda, our president is supporting al-Qaeda." So I'm interested to hear, what was your goal in saying these things? And did you consider, before saying them, the motives of Iran and Russia, what their motives might have been before making these claims?
Senator, as someone who enlisted in the military specifically because of al-Qaeda's terrorist attack on 9/11 and committing myself and my life to doing what I could to defeat these terrorists, it was shocking and a betrayal to me and every person who was killed on 9/11, their families and my brothers and sisters in uniform. When, as a member of Congress, I learned about President Obama's dual programs that he had begun really to overthrow the regime of Syria, and being willing to, through the CIA's Timber Sycamore program that has now been made public, of working with and arming and equipping al-Qaeda in an effort to overthrow that regime, starting yet another regime change war in the Middle East. DoD train and equip program, again, begun under President Obama, is widely been known, looked at, and studied, that ultimately resulted in over $500 million being used to train who they called moderate rebels, but were actually fighters working with and aligned with al-Qaeda's affiliate on the ground in Syria, all to move forward with their regime change and not acknowledging what was obvious at the time and what has unfortunately borne true, which was that a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change wars in Iraq, the toppling of Gaddafi and Mubarak, while these are all dictators, would likely result in the rise of Islamist extremists like al-Qaeda taking power. I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance, and who has already begun to persecute and kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
I understand.
Why that should be acceptable to anyone is beyond me.
It shouldn't be.
Certainly
and
not in our
interest. I appreciate your answer, and thank you. My concern has to do with the tendency to repeat Russian and Syrian, and even in some cases, I think we'll get into in the closed session, Iranian information, and to discount what comes from our intelligence community.
Senator, every American deserves to know that people in our own government were providing support to our sworn enemy, al-Qaeda. That should not be acceptable by anyone.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stavros. I'm a professor of international relations and an advocate for democracy. You're with me on Black Flag Media. In this channel, we talk about international relations, politics, and democracy. This was really interesting, I would say. So Tulsi Gabbard, I've said this many times in this channel as well, that she is an amazing person. She speaks the truth. It's a unique breed of politician. She actually served in the army first and foremost, and then she represented Hawaii, and now she's in this unique position to change Washington and specifically the intelligence community, which has been lying to the American people. She is a person who speaks truthfully, and again, this is amazing for a politician in our times, I guess. So let's examine a little bit what she has been saying to her confirmation hearings. So she has been asked constantly whether her statements about the U.S. supporting directly or indirectly terror groups, if these statements align with statements made by Syria, Iran, or maybe even Russia. And she was quoted in her hearing. She was saying when she was running for president, she was accusing Donald Trump. She was the president at the time. He was president at the time. And she was accusing him, saying that he's still betraying the American people because he is still supporting Al-Qaeda, although the U.S. As a country and the American community and the people in this country think, rightfully so, that that these guys are terrorists. They're the enemy. Al-Qaeda is the enemy, and Trump is supporting terrorists. So I guess by having Trump actually nominating her, he is agreeing with her, I guess, in the sense that the U.S. should stop supporting terror. So her response was quite amazing, literally. So what she said was, she said many things. Let's recap here and make some comments on her statement. She said that she enlisted in the army. She began to serve after 9/11, after these attacks. As you guys know, Al-Qaeda was blamed for these attacks. And she said that I committed myself to defeat these individuals, these terrorists, these terror groups, and not only me, but other people as well. And when I realized, when she said that when she was elected in office, when she became a member of the House of Representatives, she understood what was really going on, and she felt shocked and betrayed that the U.S. government was actually supporting these people. It was funding and training and equipping the terrorists that the U.S. Was supposed to hunt down and destroy because they were the ones hurting the U.S. So not only her, she said that other people, family members, people that had suffered or lost loved ones during the 9/11 incidents and attacks, they felt betrayal when they learned in Congress of the so-called Obama Jewel programs, the so-called his effort to overthrow the Syria regime. This has been proven as a CIA plot called Timber Sycamore program. This was a program that was funded by countries in the Gulf, like the Saudis, Qatar, other countries. The UK supported the US in these illegal activities, and basically these black ops CIA operations were transferring money from the US taxpayers to the hands of criminals, of terrorists. They used to call them moderate rebels, which was a joke. Nobody believed it. It has been debunked. These people were not moderates. And as she said, as Tulsi Gabbard is saying, that this program, the so-called Timber Sycamore program, it was basically equipping Al-Qaeda and working with Al-Qaeda and supporting them. The DoD, Department of Defense, did the exact same thing. Sometimes we're seeing, like, in some instances, the U.S. is fighting a war against itself. In essence, it's the CIA fighting against the Department of Defense. So it's the CIA creating a conflict. They fund terrorists, and then the U.S. Army goes in that region of the world, and they are fighting something that the CIA created. So it's the CIA versus the DoD. In this instance, the DoD supported these fundings of terrorists, and she mentioned this again under Obama. It was basically regime change, right? This is what it was always been about. She's said, quote, over $500 million were used to train so-called moderates, but they were actually Al-Qaeda members in Syria. So again, the U.S. taxpayers were paying for funding their enemies, their sworn adversaries. And this was obviously in an effort to bring about regime change. This is what the U.S. likes to do, change regimes, change leaderships, bring about their own puppets in countries so they can have puppet regimes. We have such a puppet in this country, in Greece, where I'm recording this video. So she's saying that, we try to do this in Syria, we try to do this in Iraq and Libya. See what happened in Iraq and Libya. We deposed dictators, but what happened is that we now have extremists, radical jihadists taking over like Al-Qaeda. And yes, she's saying that I said no cheer about Bashar al-Assad leaving the country and losing his grip on Syria. Yes, I'm not sad about it, but at the same time, we now have, this is amazing, what she's saying, we have an Islamist extremist in Syria in power who, as she's saying, he danced in the middle of the street after the 9/11 attacks. He celebrated the death of Americans, and now we supported this guy who is crazy, who is radical. Everybody in the whole world is saying, you know, this guy, we're talking about Mr. Jolani, that now he's actually the president of Syria. It's crazy. This guy was an ex-ISIS deputy. He was killing people. He was decapitating people, throwing people from roofs because they were gay. And this guy is now supported by the West, by the disgraceful and corrupt EU. Everybody is saying this guy had a change of heart. How can you, you know, kill babies, depose of people that you don't like and decapitate them? And, you know, then you say, you know what? Yeah, I changed. I grew out of that. That's not how it works. This guy is an animal. He's a criminal. He's a terrorist. So here is Tulsi Gabbard, an amazing politician who is saying honest truth by, you know, clearly stating that this guy is an enemy. He ruled over Idlib, the northwestern part of Syria, before he became what he is now, with an Islamist extremist governance, with an iron fist. And now, again, something that nobody is saying, she is saying it, and, you know, everybody should be ashamed of themselves for not saying so. She's saying that this guy has already begun persecuting religious minorities, like, you know, Alawites in Syria, or Christians, you know, remember Christians? Why would this be acceptable? She's saying, I don't really understand. I don't really know. Why would this be acceptable? And the person asking her the question, he's just fumbling. She sat him down and he says, yeah, it is not acceptable. You know, I basically scratch everything, all the things that I said. And she finally says, you know, and again, she's making her case basically by saying, you guys are all corrupt here. She's saying that, you know what, Senator, every American deserves to know that people in our government provided support to our enemy, which is Al-Qaeda, and that should not be acceptable to anyone. She is amazing. She is a voice for truth. We should be supporting her. So, you know, a way to do that is to like and share this video around so everybody knows what Tulsi Gabbard stands for. Everybody knows at last the support and the sponsor of terror by the US government. I think this is really, really important. We're going to keep covering these kind of videos. So if you did like, subscribe to this channel, keep raising the flag, guys. I'll see you in the next one. And again, really, really important stuff. This is not the only incidence of the US supporting terrorists. Al-Qaeda is not the only group that has been supported by the US. Many other groups, especially radical Islamist and extremist groups, have been supported not by the CIA itself, but also by MI6, which is the equivalent, the UK equivalent. And the link with the Arab states, the Gulf states, are really, it's really important in this instance, because these groups are linked with these countries through the Sunni extremist Arab Islam mentality. And this is a very, very important link. This is why the US is supporting, you know, fascist dictators, dictatorial regimes in the Gulf, because they're in cahoots to support these terrorists.